Senator Santorum, Governor Perry, you call the president a socialist. Senator Santorum, when you voted for a new prescription drug benefit that did not have a funding mechanism, were you advancing socialism?
Well, I've said repeatedly that we should have had a funding mechanism, and it's one of those things that I had a very tough vote. As you know, in that bill, we had a health savings account, something I'd been fighting for 15 years to transform the private sector healthcare system into a more consumer, bottom-up way of doing it. We also had Medicare Advantage to transform the entire Medicare system into Medicare Advantage is basically a premium support type model.
Were you advancing socialism, though?
So,
that's the point.
I think I'm just answering your question. Maybe we're not communicating well, but I just talked about the medical health savings accounts is an anti-socialistic idea to try to build a bottom-up consumer-based economy in healthcare. The same thing with Medicare Advantage. And we also structured the Medicare Part D benefit to be a premium support model as a way of trying to transition Medicare. So there were a lot of good things in that bill. There was one really bad thing. We didn't pay for it. We should have paid for it, and that was a mistake.
Do you have another follow-up on that?
No, I'm going to switch to Congressman Paul, and I'm going to say many Americans, particularly Democrats, believe that health care is a right. In your opinion, what services are all Americans entitled to expect to get from government?
Entitlements are not rights. Rights mean you have a right. Rights mean you have a right to your life, and you have a right to your liberty, and you should have a right to keep the fruits of your labor. And this is quite a bit different. But earlier on, there was a little discussion here about gay rights. I, in a way, don't like to use those terms: gay rights, women's rights, minority rights, religious rights. There's only one type of right. It's your right to your liberty. And I think this causes divisiveness when we see people in groups, because for too long we punish groups. So the answer then was let's relieve them by giving them affirmative action. So I think both are wrong. If you think in terms of individuals and protect every single individual, no, they're not entitled. One group isn't entitled to take something from somebody else. And the basic problem here is there's a lot of good intention to help poor people, but guess who gets the entitlements in Washington? The big guys get the rich people. They run the entitlement system, the military-industrial complex, the banking system. Okay. Those are the entitlements we should be dealing with.
Dr. Ball, thanks. In our remaining moment here, back to you, John.
Okay. Well, Governor Huntsman, Andy and I are about to wrap up our role in this debate. And as we do, I'd like to ask you, as someone who's been here in New Hampshire a while, what is our state motto, live free or die, mean to you personally, and how would it guide you in the White House?
It is the fulfillment of a citizenry being able to live out the meaning of our founding documents: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And everywhere I have gone in this great state, and we've done 160-plus public events, I feel it and I sense it, and people take that very seriously. You know what else they take seriously? They take seriously the idea of real leadership. I've heard a lot of obfuscating up here, the blame game, talking about gays, talking about unions. Everybody's got something nasty to say. You know what the people of this country are waiting for? And the people, they want a leader who is going to unify, who's going to bring us together. Because at the end of the day, that's what leadership is all about. It's not about taking on different groups and vilifying them for whatever reason. It's about projecting a vision for a more hopeful tomorrow. That's why there is no trust in this country today. And that's why, as president, I'm going to attack that trust deficit just as aggressively as I attack that economic deficit. Because with no trust, I can't think of anything more corrosive longer term for the people of this nation.
All right, we're gonna leave it there. Thank you, John. Thank you, Andy, both. We're going to take another quick break here. I'll be back with a final round of questions, including your questions from our Meet the Press Facebook page. We're back with our final moments in just a moment. back. Gentlemen, candidates, we have just a few minutes left, and I'd like to try something because I do want to get to as much substance and pin you down on views as best I can. I know this could be hard for you, but you are spending a lot of money getting your message out in 30-second increments based on what I've been watching in the hotel room here in New Hampshire. So I know you know how to do this. Let's try having 30-second answers to some of these questions, and we might have some response along the way. Senator Santorum, I want to ask you about Iran. It's been a big issue in the course of this campaign so far. I wonder why it is, if America has lived with a nuclear Soviet Union, we have come to live with a nuclear North Korea. Why is it that we cannot live with a nuclear Iran? And if we can't, are you prepared to take the country to war to disarm that country?
They're a theocracy. They're a theocracy that has deeply embedded beliefs that the afterlife is better than this life. President Ahmadinejad has repeatedly said the principal virtue of the Islamic Republic of Iran is martyrdom. So when your principal virtue is to die for Allah, then it's not a deterrent to have a nuclear threat if they would use a nuclear weapon. It is, in fact, an encouragement for them to use their nuclear weapon, and that's why there's a difference between the Soviet Union and China and others and Iran.
What about Pakistan? They are an indifferent ally at best. They have nuclear weapons. Are you also prepared as president to say they must disarm or else?
They are not a theocracy, and we're very hopeful of maintaining a more secular state than is in place today. But there is a serious threat, and this administration has bungled it about as badly as they can in trying to continue those positive relationships. We've had some real serious problems with the Pakistani military, obviously with respect to Osama bin Laden, with respect to North Waziristan. But you have the reason is we have a president who's just very weak in that region of the world and is not respected, right. and therefore he's not been able to have that strong hand in working with Pakistan that they're used to.
Speaker Gingrich, how about tone of this campaign? I was in Iowa. I heard you on the stump. You complained bitterly about the super PAC, the outside groups that were lodging charges against you, bringing up some old issues against you. And now you have a former campaign spokesman who is preparing attacks against Governor Romney, calling him, quote, a predator for his involvement at the investment company Bain. You agreed with somebody who said that Governor Romney was a liar when he didn't take account for those attacks against you. Are you consistent now as you're preparing to launch against Governor Romney?
Sure.
How so?
I'm consistent because I think you ought to have fact-based campaigns that talk about the records.
Calling him a predator is not over the line?
Well, I think you have to look at the film, which I haven't seen, but if you look at the New York Times article, I think it was on Thursday, you would certainly have to say that Bain at times engaged in behavior where they looted a company, leaving behind 1,700 unemployed people. That's the New York Times. That's not me. So I think one of the ads I complained about got 4 Pinocchios from the Washington Post. Now, to get 4 Pinocchios in a 30-second ad means there's virtually nothing accurate in 30 seconds.
Speaker, you decry the Washington establishment, and you've just talked about the New York Times and the Washington Post. You have agreed with the characterization that Governor Romney is a liar. Look at him now. Do you stand by that claim?
Sure, Governor, I wish you would calmly and directly state it is your former staff running the PAC, it is your millionaire friends giving to the PAC, and you know some of the ads are untrue. Just say that, straightforward.
Well, of course it's former staff of mine, and of course there are people who support me. They wouldn't be putting money into a PAC that supports me if there were people who support me. And with regards to their ads, I haven't seen them, and as you know, under the law, I can't direct their ads. Oh, Speaker, hold on a second. I can't direct their ads. If there's anything in them that's wrong, I hope they take it out. I hope everything that's wrong is taken out. But let me tell you this. The ad I saw said that you've been forced out of the speakership. That was correct. It said that you'd sat down with Nancy Pelosi and argued for a climate change bill. That was correct. It said that you called Paul Ryan's plan to provide Medicare reform a right-wing social engineering plan. It said that as part of an investigation, an ethics investigation, that you had to reimburse some $300 to $1,000. Those things were all true. If there was something related to abortion that it said that was wrong, I hope they pull it out. Anything wrong, I'm opposed to. But you know, this ain't a beanbag. We're going to come into a campaign. We're going to describe the differences between us. But I do think the rhetoric, Mr. Speaker, I think was a little over the top.
You think my rhetoric was over the top, but your ads were totally reasonable. I just want to understand. Look, I've taken the governor's advice.
Mr. Speaker, the super PACs that are out there running ads, with Ron Paul's, mine, yours. As you know, that is not my ad. I don't write that ad. I can't tell them not to.
Well, how about this? Would you both agree to take these super PAC ads down?
But, Mr. Speaker, I wouldn't call some of the things you've called me public. I think that's just over the top.
Would you both agree that to request that these super PAC ads be taken down?
David, wait a second. Come on. I'm glad finally on this stage, weeks later, he has said, gee, if they're wrong, they should take them down. They would, of course, we've sent a letter in South Carolina saying, warning the stations to just fact check them before they start running them. But I'm taking his advice. You know, we started to run his commercial from 1994, attacking Teddy Kennedy for running negative ads. We thought, no, that would be wrong. So instead, I agree with him. It takes broad shoulders to run. If you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. When the 27.5-minute movie comes out, I hope it's accurate. I can say publicly, I hope that the Super PAC runs an accurate movie about Bain. It will be based on establishment newspapers like the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Barron's, Bloomberg News, and I hope that it's totally accurate, and then people can watch the 27.5 minutes of his career at Bain and decide for themselves.
Let me ask you, Senator Santorum. We've talked some about the role of government, but the presidency is often called the bully pulpit. I wonder, as president, how you'd use the bully pulpit to try to shape American culture and values.
I haven't written a lot of books. I've written one, and it was in response to a book written by Hillary Clinton called It Takes a Village. I didn't agree with that. I believe it takes a family, and that's what I wrote. And I believe that there's one thing that is undermining this country, and it is the breakdown of the American family. It's undermining our economy. You see the rates of poverty among single-parent families, which are, moms are doing heroic things, but it's harder. It's 5 times higher in a single-parent family. We know there's certain things that work in America. Brookings Institute came out with a study just a couple of years ago that said if you graduate from high school and if you work, and if you're a man, if you marry, if you're a woman, if you marry before you have children, you have a 2% chance of being in poverty in America. And to be above the median income, if you do those 3 things, 77% chance of being above the median income. Why isn't the President of the United States, or why aren't leaders in this country talking about that and trying to formulate not necessarily federal government policy, but local policy and state policy and community policy to help people do those things that we know work and we know are good for society? This president doesn't. In fact, he has required programs not to talk about marriage, not to talk about abstinence in order to get federal funds. He's working exactly against the things he knows works because he has a secular ideology that is against the traditions of our country.
Dr. Paul, quickly, how would you use the bully pulpit?
I would continue to do what I'm doing now, preaching the gospel of liberty. I think that the most important ingredients in this country that made us great was our founders understood what liberty meant. And that is what we need. We have deserted that. We have drifted a long way. It involves our right to our life, right to our liberty. We ought to be able to keep the fruits of our labor. We ought to understand property rights. We ought to understand contract rights. We ought to understand what sound money is all about. And we ought to understand what national defense means. That means defending this country. That is the bully pulpit we need. We need to defend liberty.
Defend liberty and?
And liberty.
Thank you. We're going to take another break here. We'll be back to some closing moments right after this. I would like to thank the candidates for joining us. I'd also like to thank our debate partners, Facebook, the New Hampshire Union Leader, and our hosts here, of course, in Concord, the Capital Center for the Arts. Thank you, of course, for watching and participating in this debate online. Post-debate analysis will continue on MSNBC. Be sure to watch complete coverage of the New Hampshire primary returns. That's Tuesday night on NBC News, MSNBC, and online at NBCPolitics.com. We'll be back next week from Washington. If it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
We've been watching the 15th Republican debate of this election season. Good morning. I'm Chris Matthews in Manchester, New Hampshire, just 2 days away from the New Hampshire primary. We'll be here for the next hour and a half. I'm here with Howard Fineman, the Huffington Post Media Group's political director, and Eugene Robinson, is a Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist for the Washington Post. Both are MSNBC political analysts. Gentlemen, right off the bat, fantastic event this morning. A ripping debate, highly charged, electric in many moments.
Yes, this focused the main question of New Hampshire, whether Mitt Romney will be ratified as the likely nominee of the party, and this debate showed his weaknesses. It showed his stance as the nice guy, businessman, non-politician was open to question, and it was questioned by everybody else on the stage and very surgically.